Welcome to short r/middle-sized long stories. Your host may appear to be AI, but it just uses artificial speaking voices based on real people speaking tones, while maintaining the intelligence of someone who can still screw up basic tasks as narrating a story. The next story is from r/confession and it was posted by the user Automatic Showcase. I set up everything and then barely do anything at work. A year ago, I landed a fully remote job as a project coordinator for a MNC. The interview process was tough: behavioral rounds, a case study, and a final interview where I had to outline how I'd manage multiple projects at once. It made the job sound fast-paced, and a little intimidating. But today, I'm sitting in my home at 10:30 a.m., sipping coffee, staring at my calendar, and realizing I have nothing urgent to do. Again. My first month was crazy. I set up project timelines, created dashboards for tracking, and streamlined how our team updated weekly reports. My manager was impressed and called me a genius because I set up automated reminders for overdue tasks. Then things slowed down. Once the initial setup was done, my daily workload shrank to some emails, occasional check-in meetings, and urgent requests. For meetings, I barely pay attention. I recommend people to start using AI, Fathom, to summarize and get action items. My 50-year-old director called me a techie for doing that. Man, I don't even like tech that much. Last week, my manager asked if I remembered a decision we made 2 months ago. I typed a keyword into my second brain app, Saner, and had the answer for him right away. And he asked me whether I have photographic memory. Sir, I don't even remember my friend's birthday. Most of my time is now spent appearing busy. I keep a detailed doc page open during Zoom calls so it looks like I'm working hard. I schedule Slack message to send later in the days, while I actually finish them in maybe 20 minutes. Sometimes, I feel guilty about how little I actually do. I've picked up hobbies. I've learned to make fresh pasta. Started decorating my house. I've read more books this year than in the last 2 combined. Every now and then, I panic that my manager will catch on and fire me during these silent layoffs, but last week, she told me I'm doing an incredible job keeping everything on track, so yeah. The next story is from r/confession and was posted by user prepress_god. I took what we needed and I don't regret it at all. When I was young, my mother, older brother and myself were very, very poor. With no dad ever in the picture, my mom had a few asshole boyfriends that weren't worth a shit. I remember one had his own business but never contributed to our household but would stay there more often than not. One night he left his car open and I just so happened to open the door and looked in his glove compartment. There was an envelope stuffed with about 100 $100 bills. So I took 3 of them. The next day 12-year-old me was grocery shopping with my mom. We were only gonna get the bare minimum with a few food stamps she had, as usual. I gave her those 3 $100 bills and said, "Get what you need, Mom. If anyone asks, you just found them rolled up on the floor right now." He never found out and that became a weekly thing. The envelope wasn't always there and his car wasn't always open, but I started to sneak into my mom's room late at night to either get his keys or go through his wallet. Mom is now 85 and she doesn't remember any of it, but I do. No regrets. The next story is from r/confession and it was posted by the user bananagoat6_6. I haven't shared this with anyone in over 20 years. When I was young, I don't know exactly how old, maybe 13 to 15. I was visiting my uncle in New York City. My uncle had a small apartment and to access the bathroom I had to go through his bedroom. One of the days I was there he introduces me to his new girlfriend and she ends up spending the night. Shortly after they went to sleep, I had to take a huge number 2. They had shut the door to the bedroom and I was very insecure about waking them up or even interrupting something intimate. In a panic, I did my business in an empty grocery bag. Afterwards I wasn't sure what to do with the evidence. I considered throwing it out the window, but my paranoia got the best of me. What if someone saw and was able to identify the apartment it came from through the window and I got in trouble? So the only thing I could think to do was put the bag of doo-doo in my backpack and carry it out of the apartment with me to dispose of, in a public toilet. The next morning, we rode the elevator downstairs and all I could smell was the horrid odor of what was hidden in my backpack. My uncle and his girlfriend never mentioned the smell even though it had to be so pungent. I had hoped they may just assume it had been the smells of the city or something. But in retrospect, they had to know it was coming from me in some way. Eventually I made it to a restroom and ditched the bag, but my backpack still stunk, I'm sure. The smell lingered with me for the rest of the trip. Now every time I see my uncle and his girlfriend I relive the shame of that experience. I have never shared this with anyone and it bothers me so much to this day. Edit. Thank you all for helping me laugh about this incident. It hasn't been easy to talk about simply because of the amount of embarrassing things I'm still holding on to. I will probably share some of the other stuff here in time. This was a bit of an easy one to put out there for my first internet confession. I am strongly considering telling my uncle when he visits this Christmas. And for those wondering, he is still with the same woman. They are married and have an adorable daughter together. New edit. I reworded a couple parts to make it read better. Also, wiping wasn't really necessary, it was a massive log, but a very clean execution. LOL. If you enjoy the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon for notifications. Thank you. Now let's get back to our stories. The next story is from r/confession and was posted by the user Defiant Monitor 3029. I pretend to be bad at work so people don't give me more responsibilities. About 2 years ago I, 28 mil, switched departments at my corporate job. In my old role I was known as the guy who could fix anything. And what did that get me? Constant interruptions, unpaid overtime, and exactly zero recognition when promotion time came around. So when I transferred to the new department, I made a strategic decision to play dumb. The first time someone asked me to help with Excel, I deliberately took forever and made the most basic formula errors. When they needed help with the presentation software, I acted confused about how to add animations. The result? My actual assigned work gets done perfectly and on time. But nobody, and I mean nobody, comes to me with quick favors or small tasks that somehow always balloon into massive projects. My manager thinks I'm reliable for my designated responsibilities, and that's it. I go home at 5 p.m. every day. My stress levels have plummeted. I actually have energy for hobbies again. I even got promoted last month. And with those reduced work hours, I finally had time to do some freelancing after work, which has been quite beneficial. One night I threw like $100 on Jackpot City just for fun and somehow turned it into enough to cover a weekend trip. Totally lucky, but it weirdly made me realize how much more in control I feel of my time and energy now. Sometimes I feel a tiny bit guilty about what I'm doing, but then I remember what happened at my old job and that feel goes away. Smile. The next story is from r/revenge stories and was posted by user Sam_and_Ps. 14 years ago I told the biggest lie. So when I was in primary school in year 4, must have been exactly 14 years ago to this moment, I had a bully we'll call L. L was an absolutely diabolical kid. He would pick and tease on me constantly and just would never leave me alone. I just remember being very sick of it and would cry every night because he was making my life so miserable and made me feel very small. One day though I altered reality and he would soon never go near me again. Imagine it's a Thursday evening, I'm riding my bike with my friend at the time on my way home and L pops out from the corner down an alleyway on his bike along with his dopey friends. They were twins and the best way to describe them is the Bulldog twins from Timothy Goes to School. Just plain stupid little boys. I tell L to just leave me alone and that I don't want any trouble from him. He then pushes me off my bike and starts calling me names. To him I was an ugly effer and that I should watch my back at school, otherwise my head is getting flushed down the toilet. At this point I would usually cry at him, but something snapped and I looked at him and uttered the words, "If you don't leave me alone I am going to tell everyone you punched me in the face and then say you're going to hit my little brothers next time." He got into my face and told me to do it while pulling my hair and then even spat on me. He then got on his bike with his stupid friends and cycled off. I then cycled a bit more with my friend down the street and told her to punch me. At first she was reluctant, but I told her to just do it as hard as she could. She did and even knocked a baby tooth out. I put that baby tooth in my pocket and told her if anyone asks her about what happened to just say what he did and then add at the end that he punched me. I get home, work up some tears mainly from jamming my finger into the socket my tooth got knocked out from, and went to my mom crying my eyes out. She come over rushing asking what had happened and I told her that Al had punched me in the face and threatened to attack my brothers. My sister was in the other room, heard what happened and was livid. She stormed straight that house on the phone to her friend shouting, and I quote, "Some fucker has just attacked my brother, we're going to find him." I sat on the sofa quite happily that night with ice cream my mom let me have while watching The Simpsons before my bath in bed. The next day at school my mom took me to the head teacher's office and demanded to see my head teacher. She came out and my mom explained what had happened to her and we sat down, had a meeting, and I told her exactly what had happened plus the great big fat lie. My head teacher took this very seriously, and when I say all I wanted was him to get told off so he would leave me alone. Oh boy did he get more than that. The head teacher immediately suspended him from my school and even called the police. The school had an emergency assembly about the incident and stated that bullying would not be tolerated and students would be faced severe punishments for bullying. The police sat down with me, asked what had happened, told the same story, went to my friend who also told the same story. I do feel bad for making her do that, however she was truly a ride or die for doing that. I then later found out Elle had been expelled. The twins who were also there got in huge trouble as well. They went to a different school, but I was told from a friend who also went to that school that they were placed in a detention area of the school for a good while. I honestly did not mean for it to go this way, however in my head to this day he did need a lesson and I did tell him the truth at least. About 2 to 3 years ago I got a message from Elle on Instagram. Was honestly shocked that he would do that considering what had happened. I hadn't heard, seen or spoken to him since the night he stopped me on his bike. He basically messaged me that he did used to bully me and he does regret it, but asked me if he actually punched me. I was flabbergasted. He genuinely thought he had punched me that night. I did reassure him though that no, he did not punch me and that I had lied about it. He asked why I had lied about it and I told him straight up that I had told him that if he didn't leave me alone that I would tell people that he had punched me and then wanted to hurt my brothers and that he told me to do it. He replied back that he actually respected that I stuck with my word. I then asked him about what happened to him after he was suspended and expelled, as I never saw or heard of him again. He told me that after he was expelled his family was furious, came from a very strict family, and that he was basically grounded from doing anything for a long time. We're talking years. The police came and he had to speak to them and basically bluffed the entire time as he was shitting himself and was then sent to some sort of order with his parents for behavior and anger. He was then homeschooled for the rest of the year and then after that year was over sent to boarding school for the rest of his school life. I also asked about the twins, however he knew as much as I knew and said that the twins' parents had banned them from seeing him, and when he tried to ring the house phone after he found out was told by the dad that he was a terrible influence on them and that they didn't want him going near them. I do feel bad in some way for doing that, but he honestly seems fine now and even told me that had I not done that he probably wouldn't have learned his lesson and said that he would have never forgiven himself had I done something worse than a punch to myself. Had he continued? Edit almost forgot my sister did find him a few days later with her friends and my god did he shit himself. Apparently they were in a Tesco he was also in and cornered him into an aisle and scared the life out of him. My sister went all out on him saying that he ever even breathes near my again she'll make sure that it will be his last breath. Obviously she wasn't going to unalive him. It was my big sister protecting her own blood, heart emoji. If you enjoy the video please like the video, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon for notifications. Thank you.